Hey everyone, Katie and Sergeant Steel here, and today I'm excited to talk to you about one of my absolute favorite units ever made by Games Workshop / Forge World, and that is the Earthshaker Carriage battery. I have owned these models since 7th edition and I have used them for nearly a decade now, and I absolutely love them. And if they do away with them, I will be very deeply upset. But anyways, let's talk about this amazing, really cool artillery carriage that we have here today. So let's start out with its stat line. And you're going to see this is very similar to the field ordnance battery in its stats. It is movement 4, toughness 7. So that's the difference. Field ordnance battery is only toughness 5. This is T7, 4 up save, same save, 6 wounds, leadership 7, OC 2. This has almost, except for toughness, the exact same stat line as the field ordnance battery. So I love this because it's consistency among the carriage artillery. So this way you're not having to jump between profiles on these. It's very obvious what their stats are. Now, it also has a special thing in the rules here. You can only take one model per unit. You can no longer squad these up. That's long gone in 10th edition. But I want you to set up 5 crew tokens. And those represent 5 of the 6 wounds, with the final wound on the model being the model itself. And so this way, as you take damage, you're supposed to remove crew members from its setup, but they do not count. They're just tokens to count wounds. They don't count towards the model's footprint, so they don't count for charges or anything else. It's a very strange rule, and it's something they've been trying to figure out since, honestly, 8th edition. I really wish they would just remake this kit, give it crew, and give them guns. And then as they die off, you lose the weapons like you would in any other squad, right? The las guns or las pistols or whatever. But anyhow, that's where we're at. So let's talk about its war gear. It only has 2 pieces of war gear. It has the Earthshaker cannon, and it has close combat weapons. The close combat weapons give it 5 melee attacks. So that is a little bit different, but other than that, it's like a melee profile like any other regular guardsman. But the Earthshaker cannon is just like the one that's on the Basilisk. It is blast, heavy, and indirect fire. Now, the heavy part is really great for this, and we'll talk why in just a moment. It is 240-inch range. That is 20 feet. That's right. Bring this to your Apocalypse games. You'll be able to hit everybody on the other side of the store. Nobody is safe from your reign of terror. It is D6 plus 3 attacks, minimum 4 up to 9, not counting blast. It is ballistic skill 5, oof. AP minus 2, flat 2 damage. So this has a very similar profile, like I said, the field ordnance battery and the bombast field gun, especially with its changes to ballistic skill. Previous editions, it had BS4, and now we're looking at BS5, and it's because of the heavy rule and the indirect fire rules. So what the heavy is meant to do is balance out the indirect fire penalty of -1 to hit. Of course, you can give it orders, you can give it other buffs to help get around that. Let's talk about what makes this special. Its ability is Earthshaker rounds, and this is exactly like the Basilisk. So that is, in case you're unfamiliar, in your shooting phase, after this model has shot, if one or more of those attacks made its Earthshaker cannon scored a hit against an infantry unit, so all you gotta do is hit. You don't have to wound, you just gotta hit. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, that infantry unit is shaken. While the unit is shaken, subtract 2 from its move characteristic and subtract 2 from advance and charge rolls made for it. So that's very important to keep in mind. So you're really drastically reducing the movement of enemy units that are infantry keyword. So great thing to keep in mind. This makes this a very strong utility unit, not just a killing unit with strength 8, -2, flat 2 damage, but with -2 movement, advance, and charge. Then this becomes a way to control your opponent's movement, and really a great way to prevent your opponent from capturing objectives or making charges into your units, and which is a lot of the way that I like to use the Earthshaker, in addition to just killing things. Since it is a regiment keyword unit, you will get lethals against anything not monster or vehicle. And with strength 8, you're going to be wounding most things on 2s, 3s at worst. That's really good So this is a great killer of infantry and elites. So that is the kind of target you want to use or to shoot at. Now, how would I run this unit? Obviously, I think I would put this in my backfield. I think I would put it out of line of sight, and I would put it in a place where I could screen out the back maybe 9 inches of my deployment zone, unless my opponent can deploy closer to the 9 inches, which is a question I always ask when I start my games. Can you deploy less than 9 inches, and how can you do so? So I can plan for where this is placed. And so I usually will put it back there behind some ruins here, and then screen it out with other units. Then I usually also won't put it in range of my backfield objective marker. I will usually use infantry or vehicles to do that, and this will just screen out for them though. But if it's far enough back that my opponent can't get in behind it and there's units in front of it so they can't deep strike in and get to this or use strategic reserves, then this unit is relatively safe. As long as you're being aggressive and you're pushing forward and keeping your opponent away from your deployment zone. So how would I buff this unit? Well, you got a couple different options. Of course, the tried, the true, as always, the Scout Sentinel. It's a great way to do it. You use Daring Recon, and that negates your -1 to hit. So you're guaranteed to hit on 4s with your heavy ability. That's really awesome. And you're rerolling 1s to hit. And with lethal hits on 6, the rerolling 1s will help you fish for the 6s. And with the new rule of always missing on a 1, 2, or 3, that's really all the buff you need. The Earthshaker Carriage needs no buffs beyond that. You could give it Fields of Fire for an extra AP, right? Same as anything else in the Guard Army. Or use the Exterminator Autocannon Lehman Russ to give it an extra AP in its shooting. But flat 2, most of the time you're going to be putting things on their invuln save if they have it. So where you may want to use the extra AP is if you're shooting at a target, say like regular Intercessor Space Marines, that do not have an invulnerable save, and then you need that extra AP to take them out if your goal is to destroy them rather than reduce their movement. So I think the Scout Sentinel is probably the best buffing unit for an Earthshaker Carriage. You could also use a commander to use an officer to issue orders, like take aim to this unit to give it +1 to hit without the Scout Sentinel, so you're still hitting on 4s with just no rerolls. And that's fine. And honestly, I think orders are so cheap, right? With Castellans and Creed and command squads and field marshals, that why not, right? Why not give it orders too? But I think obviously with the rerolling 1s, the Sentinel is the best of those options. I would then play this in such a way that I usually shoot it last. I shoot it last because I usually reserve this in case there's one unit on the table that I need to take out. At strength 8, -2, flat 2 damage. This weapon can damage vehicles and monsters if it has to. And it will definitely shred infantry and elites, which is what it's meant to do. So I hold it back and I just see how everything plays out during my shooting phase. And then I will fire my artillery. Now, sometimes I do it differently. It's based on context. For example, if my goal is to kill a unit rather than reduce its movement, I may use my forward units to shoot first to deal damage and see if I can take a unit out. And if I fail to do that, then I bring in the Earthshaker. Or if there's a unit that's just absolutely perfect for the Earthshaker to fire at, say, I don't know, a 10-man unit of intercessors, because they're only toughness 4 with a 3-up save and 2 wounds each. So this thing is hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 2s, and then putting them without cover to a 5-up save and with cover to a 4-up save, and it gets cover if you're using indirect without a Hellhound, right? So puts them to either 4-up or 5-up save. This thing is going to murder them. Then if you have the Master of Ordnance, so you can give this sustained hits 1, that will allow you to proc even more lethals and more hits to do more damage to a unit like that. And then if you have other forward units to help plink away and finish that unit off, then maybe you do want to start out with the Earthshaker Carriage to maximize its blast ability. So you get that +1, +2, maybe +3 or +4 number of attacks with the weapon. So what order you fire this is based on context, but most of the time when I play, it's the last thing I shoot. And it helps me to clean up what I may have failed to do with my other units. Because this is a dice game, right? We're going to roll, and the dice are going to decide the story. They're going to decide the fate of what happens. Do things explode? Do things run away? Do they fail to do their actions, or do they die a horrible, miserable death? And so in a dice game, I want to keep something back so I can try to get the outcome that is most desirable for me. And that's really how I play this unit. Now, the advantages to this compared to the Basilisk is that you really don't need, obviously, very many buffs. You can just sit it back, and it can take orders from infantry officers, regimental officers. And that makes this really great. Now, it doesn't really need those orders either. Just like the Basilisk now. It doesn't really need orders anymore unless you want to shoot it with direct fire. So that makes this a unit that you can kind of sit back and easily buff with just Scout Sentinels, which is really nice. The downside is, where a Basilisk is T9 with 11 wounds and a 3-up save, it will last much longer. And with this only being T7, 6 wounds with a 4-up save, that means it's more easily damaged by small arms and medium arms on the battlefield. So your opponent doesn't have to use anti-vehicle weapons on it. And actually, because it has the infantry keyword, even anti-infantry weapons will wound this thing pretty significantly, especially since most of those are anti-infantry 2-up, right? Poison weapons and stuff. So you got to keep that in mind. It's not as resilient as the Basilisk, but for its point cost and for its flexibility, I think it's well worth it. Especially over the last several months here in 10th edition, Basilisk, Manticores, and the other artillery have been hard to come by. Everybody complains that they're hard to buy as new kits, and honestly, since Guard has become popular in 8th, 9th, and 10th editions, it's been harder and harder to find this stuff on eBay as well. So if you're able to get these kits, and they are more expensive, but they do have different utility just a little bit, and I think they're really fun kits to build and paint too. So it could be a reason just to get this, is just because you can actually find it, right? You can actually purchase it, put it together, and play with it. And I think it's a lot of fun, honestly. I'll be taking this in my July competitive league. I'll be taking it with the Field Ordnance Battery, and I'll be putting these behind an Aegis defense line. Ooh, getting controversial here, because I'm taking a unit that everyone thinks is worthless, but I think may have a role. And so I'm going to be investigating that much further during my competitive league games in the month of July 2024. And so I'll be playing this myself. I've already used this a lot in 9th edition. I haven't used it at all in 10th, but I'm looking forward to it and playing it out there. Like I said, it's a unit I've been running and playing for nearly a decade, and I'm glad to get it back on the battlefield again. Even with the indirect fire rule changes, I actually think it makes this even more viable option. So that's all I have for you today. And that's all I have for you about this unit. It's a model I love. I do recommend trying it if you're interested in getting one. It's a really fun hobby kit. It's movable and flexible. You can move the cannons up and down. You can put these together. Comes with the little tracks for your wheels when you deploy the carriage there. And you can even put this on the tow hooks on the back of your vehicles and make cool dioramas with the kit. So I think it's well worth it to purchase one of these. So definitely check the kit out. Go have some fun. I'm here for the painting and the building and the hobbying as well as the playing. And I think this is one of those amazing kits you have a lot of fun with. Just like a lot of the new plastic kits, like the new Sentinel, new Field Ordnance Battery kit. So if you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of you being here. If I have missed something, please put it down in the comments below. Having dialogue about these things are going to help educate all of us and make us all better players. When we're better players, we have better games, and our opponents do too. We just have a lot more fun, right? We have a better time. So let's chat about this. Let's talk about the indirect fire rule changes, and let's talk about artillery and how we use it in our games, or all of our other Astra Militarum units, because we have so many awesome units. We have one of the largest ranges of models in Warhammer 40,000, and it's one of the reasons why I play the army. It's so much fun to have all this stuff to pick from and to play with. But as always, have fun wargaming, and remember, Cadia stands.